All right, let's go ahead and get started. Today we'll be talking about Stratum dashboards. And let me just move this menu down. So today's topic is Stratum dashboards. We'll be talking about uh, our latest ability to provide the data in a flexible manner. So obviously we have different ways for users to get their data. And one of the newer ways is for them to access data via a dashboard. So we'll talk a little bit about what's available in Stratum, the latest version of Stratum. In terms of dashboards, we'll take a look at building a dashboard and look at the designer that's used to do that. And then we'll do a quick demo and take any questions. The Stratum Data Hub, as usual, we'll be talking about the dashboards today, which is a way to get data out of the Data Hub. As you can see, there's different ways to get data out of the Data Hub. And we'll be focusing in on the dashboard area today. But as you can see, obviously, yeah, you can use many different tools to get data out of Stratum. New charts are available in the latest version of 7.4 in the dashboarding feature. So we'll take a look at that. And so keep that in mind that if you're looking for more up-to-date chart and graphics to show your data and present your data and more up-to-date charts and graphics, this is something that you could use to do that. So in version 7.4, you have the dashboarding graphics that are brand new. Here we see a snapshot of what the dashboard might look like. This is actually the demo that we use. And this is some of the new graphs that are available. As you can see, bar charts, pie charts, gauges, line graphs are all available. And here we can see getting access to the dashboard designer. It's under the hamburger menu that's in the latest release of 7.4. And if you go into the dashboards menu and click on it, it then takes you and opens up a new tab for the designer. And at that point, you can start maintaining or building new dashboards. We could see that we get access to all the different views and view groups that are available within the viewer environment. And you can expand those and gain access to the views. As you can see, there's a toggle that allows you to edit the dashboard. So once you turn that on, it makes a connection and allows you to gain access to those views. There's a different settings that you can go into to specify different criteria. You can hide certain things once you drag and drop perhaps a view into the dashboard. You can drag and drop a view data chart into the dashboard. And there's some additional settings that you can go into to hide certain things. Maybe you don't want to display the view name or what's in the view filter. If you're using a view image, you can hide that too. The paging controls, as you can see, there's many different things that you can hide. You can also link content to that widget. So if you want to link another URL, you can link them to your website. There's different things that you can do. So, with that, you've got, the customization of the dashboard widget that you use, and you'll have control as to what you want to hide and make available and make visible, I should say. And we'll take a look at that when we start looking at the demo. So the new charts are available. As you can see, when I select a view, I will then have the ability to make a selection for which chart type that I want to start out with. And don't worry, you can always change it down the line if you need to. So it's not something that you're completely committed to. So that's something obviously that certainly is something that you can change. Makes it real simple. Obviously, these charts are not too sophisticated and overly sophisticated, I should say. So you don't get lost in the concept of the chart. I think they're just easy enough for your analyst to go in and create these charts on their own and be able to present the data in more of a meaningful fashion, a graphical fashion. So select, obviously the concept here is to select the chart type and then drag and drop the view that you want to use for that chart type into the designer and then customize from there. I'll show you how it's done here in a second. When you customize the chart, you've got additional capabilities. So there's, two different things. You got the customization of the widget, which we already looked at, and then the chart itself. And so there's additional features that you can go into for the chart. And when I click on the edit button, I get a edit chart menu where I can select or change the chart that I'm using. Or I can go in and tell the chart what components that I want to chart. You might have a view that has multiple columns in it, where you can then come into the chart data menu and then you can select which elements or which measures that you want to base the chart on. When I select the customization of the chart, as you can see, I can then select my labels. This particular view that I'm using has additional measures or the series, as you can see, where I'm just charting this year and last year's sales. But as you can see, there's other measures that I can include in the chart if I wanted to, because those are there, they're already within the view. And that's good because you don't have to build the view per se to fit the chart. You can base the chart on an existing view and then subset it, just use a subset of the view for your charting. Here, if I want to change the chart, if I want to pursue that, I can then change that chart type, and then I will then be presented with this menu where I can select the different charts that are available. It's a pretty good selection. You've got the bar, the column, bar charts. You've got the combinational where you can do a bar and a line together, area type graphs, line, pie charts, odometers. I'll show you those in a second. Custom widgets. So this is cool too, because you might want to you might want to include other things in your dashboard other than a view from Stratum. You can use, as you can see in my example down here, I'm using a Power BI report that I've published to the cloud. You can use any URL here. So if you want to show a specific URL to something that you have online, you can specify that URL and then make that a part of your website or your dashboard. And I'll show you an example of that. You can also, so a URL obviously opens things up quite a bit to a lot. You can use websites, you can use reporting services reports because those are accessible through a URL. Power BI reports are accessible. Anything else that you can access via a web link. So that's available, and that's down at the bottom area of the menu where you can select other dashboard widgets, and it's called a custom URL widget. So that opens some things up for customization and other things that may not be within Stratum that you want to make available for the dashboard. That's my contact information. Again, my name's Adam Kurtz. You can contact me at that email address. There's some other links down the bottom on our website, and customernet.sylvan.com is available if you want to download software or read up on latest releases. We have what's new documentation available under that link, so that's always great to look at. There's our forum, which has been reconfigured, so check that out, and then our YouTube channel in which this recording will end up on as well. So we record all the sessions, so if you missed a portion, you can always come to the YouTube channel and subscribe to it, and you'll always get alerted to the latest recordings. With that being said, let's take a look at the dashboard. Here's my dashboard. So here's the latest release of Viewer. I've got the Stratum interface right here, and my views are over here on my left-hand side. So it's not overly different. It does look a little different, but this is the latest release of version 7.4. And over here on the right-hand side, I can see my hamburger menu. If I hover over it, I can then go to manage things and bring up my dashboard menu. That brings me to my dashboard designer, where then I can come and access the dashboards that I've already created. And if I click in on the Stratum dashboard, I can see the dashboard that's currently available within my home page. So that's the one I'm using right now in my home page area here, is this particular dashboard that I can scroll through. And let me refresh that. There's my scroll bar. So this is the dashboard that I've created. So, and here it is within the designer. So as you can see, there are different tabs. One's for the actual dashboard that the users will see, and then only certain people can go in and design this. So this is the designer. I'm not in edit mode yet, so I'm just looking at my dashboard that I've selected here to edit. If I want to create a new one, I can just click on the new dashboard and it prompts me for a name. So if I click, select test 2, I can then start building a brand new dashboard instead of editing an existing one. So right from the get-go, it tells you how to select, what those tips are, or those different areas are that you want to select for the different types of charts that you want to pursue. So you can read through that and click OK when you're done. And then, so now I'm in edit mode automatically because it's a brand new dashboard. So as you can see, I've gained access to the different view groups here on my right-hand side that I can go ahead and expand out. Each one of these are view groups that I already have access to. So if I go back to my demo, there's my favorites. So that, if I were to look at that, I could see that within my dashboard designer, if I open up favorites, I get access to all the same views as well. So before I drag and drop that over, I want to make sure that I select a specific view type that I want to pursue here. So, I can select a column bar chart, or different types of bar charts on the different axes, a line, pie, or a data grid. So it's up to you to select those, or which type of chart you want to start out with. And again, keep in mind that you can always customize the chart further, and there's also different subtypes of that chart available as well. And I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to select the bar chart. I'm going to bring over my comparative sales view, and it'll try to chart the data automatically. And as you can see, it's not great because the view I selected has more than one or two, or it's got more measures that I would want to chart. So how do I fix that? Well, the first thing I would do is go in and edit this item, and then I get into an edit mode for the chart, where I can then select the chart data or chart type. Well, I know I want to stay with this chart type, but I definitely know I don't want to chart all this data. So I'm going to go into chart data and see if I can pare this down. So there you have it. I've got all the different measures that are available. I'm going to deselect those because I don't want to chart all of these. And so I just want to select the ones that I want to base the chart on. And that would be this year and last year's sales. So I'm just going to deselect some of the stuff until I get to the two measures that I want selected, which are those two right there. This other stuff are just other elements, other calculations that are within my view. And I will just deselect those. And when I'm done, I'm going to click OK. And the chart will then render, the selection that you just made as a preview. And this, as you can see, it looks a lot better, I think. So now we've got this year and last year's sales. Managing my divisions here, or gaining access to those. And as you can see, when I hover over these, it gives me a synopsis of what the number actually is for that particular chart, which is nice. Again, I can go back into chart type. If I wanted to change this on a dime, it gives you a nice little preview of what it would look like if you already use some of these different charts that are available. So if I wanted to, and notice I can go further into the charting types. So if I want to stack it, I can do something like that. I can also play around with some of these other chart types. If I want to do a stack column, I could do that too. Some of these other ones are interesting. Once you start playing around with them, you can see how they, what they look like. It's kind of strange, but the line chart would have to be built different. As you can see, I can use some of these, but you would have to incorporate more data points for a good line chart. So we'll stick with this classic. I'm going to click OK, and quite a bit to pursue there. As you can see, I can kind of go through all the different chart types and kind of select, which one that I want to use here. And once I make those selections, as you can see, it then renders the chart within my dashboard widget, and that's, and it looks great. This is something that you want the chart to look like. You want to tell a story without providing too much or too little. This may be too little, you would think, but I can always jump to the view. So each user has the ability to open this chart widget within the dashboard, and they can actually open the view behind it and do some analysis behind the view, this is the actual view that was used for that particular chart. And then I can delve into the view, and I can drill in on the view and start doing analysis, and get more data, right? This is something that you wouldn't necessarily want to make available within the dashboard, but as you can see, I have access to the more data if I wanted to go further into my analysis. This only tells me so much, but then I can get into the details by jumping to the view from the actual dashboard component. I can use that same view to build maybe a pie chart of current year sales. So, I got the same view that I can use for a pie chart, and it will, go ahead and do its best guess here in terms of what it charted. I can go in and again, go back into my elements here and select which ones I want to make available for the chart. So I'm just going to select current year sales. So I'm going to deselect these once again, and we will make sure that we only have current year sales selected, which would be January through September of this year. So that's the only one I want to make available. And there it is. So that's the one. So now it's charted. We can see that the grocery division obviously is dominant. And I can then close that out, and we can then have that available too. Now, if I jump to that view, so basically it charted it out based on the divisions. Now, a cool thing you can do is if the view was actually built for another dimension, like for instance, product brand, I can then go ahead and save that. And then once I save that away, the next time this gets charted, as you can see, it's going to base that on the product brand. So I can just refresh that here to see how that's going to look at the product brand level. So I can play around with the levels, as I do my designing. If I wanted to do further design on that, I can keep opening the view behind that and then play more games with it, right? If I wanted to introduce more dimensions to chart, just kind of take a look at, maybe product category might be another interesting one to look at for charting capabilities. So if I were to save that and then come back to my chart dashboard and refresh that, that looks pretty good. It's not, the other one was a bit too much, but this one is a bit cleaner. So, yeah, I'm just building a chart going along here. The line graph is a little more tricky, not too bad. For instance, this one here is showing me food and grocery year-to-date sales. So what would this look like? Let's take a look. I'll show you the view and what it needs to look like for you to do something like this. It's not crazy. So here I've got my division up here on my columns for food and grocery. And then, my months, my year and my months are going down in a vertical fashion. And again, I could change the dimension here if I wanted to graph other things, and do other line graphs. Yeah, I can definitely do that, and play some games like we just did with the pie chart, right? So there's some fun things that you can do. Pretty simple. As you play around with the view behind it, as you refresh the components within the view, that's a pretty simple thing to do to design these things out. Here's the gauges that I was talking about. So here's a gross margin gauge where I can see food service and grocery and what their margins are, roughly 12, and they're almost identical. That's the wonderful thing about demo data. This probably will never happen in reality, but nevertheless, if I open the view behind this, it's just simply graphing my divisions by the gross margin percents that is part of the Stratum calculation for gross margin standard. And again, as a user, I can then drill into this and see some of my more profitable areas. If I were to sort this in descending fashion, I could see that Dewdrop is a highly profitable area for my products. As I drill to the product areas, I can see some of my highly profitable products that are available. I can add more data if I wanted to see sales, etc. I think how to navigate Stratum, but you always have the ability to add in more data as needed. So if you want to see some more data, the actual sales behind this or the costs that's deriving, this gross margin amount, I can bring in my costs and do some further analysis on some of this stuff. So here's my standard cost that I can bring that in, right? And just marry that in with the other data, right? Bring in sales, further verify, my gross margin percents here. So the gauge, if I were to go in and edit this, I could show you where the gauges are. They're actually part of the subset of the pie charts. So if I were to edit the data type and go into chart data, sorry about that, go into chart type, in case you wanted to change that. You'll select pie, and then if you go into the subset of the pie charts, you'll see that, gosh, it might have been wrong. They're under the more. I apologize. So I thought they would be under the pie, but they're not. So they're right here. So there's the gauge, where I can then select the gauge, and as you can see, it then makes its necessary selection there. And it shows you the preview. Some of this other stuff you can play around with, but it doesn't really lend itself nicely. And what's cool about this is that if it doesn't work, it'll actually give you a tooltip here of how to build a report that might work for some of these other chart types. But it was able to derive some gauges out of the data that I created. So yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff to play around with. And then finally, you can bring in the actual viewed grid itself. So if I wanted to use like the actual data grid of any of these views, then I can always drag and drop those in and make that available too. So here's the actual data grid of the view that you can make available anywhere within the dashboard. And again, I can highlight or hide some of this stuff if I wanted to hide some of those components. That's where I would go into the actual settings of the widget and hide some of the stuff that may not apply. So I can make this cleaner if I needed to, right? So once I stop that editing, and that's basically, I've added some components here, the new data grid there. We changed some things, and we've taken a look at some things here. And once you do that, and then the users come in the next morning or whatever, they come into their dashboard, and they'll get some of the components they had before. And as you can see, my bar chart is now at the product, brand, or category level. So that's been changed. And then we have the new data grid down here. And this is, I can do the same thing within the data grid that I can do within the view. If I want to make some drill downs here, I can do that and start drilling in on some of the data. All right, so that's a little quickie on the dashboarding within Stratum. Again, you have to be on 7.4 to experience the new graphs. Dashboarding, I believe, is available in version 7.2, but it does not have the new graphing capabilities that you saw today.